Shawnee Kish is a Mohawk singer-songwriter whose powerful voice and vulnerability break boundaries in both the music world and the LGBTQ plus representation. She is a two-spirit individual. She describes music as the force that saved her life.
The TED Talk, music does and did. Well, it did save my life, and it continues to heal me. I struggled when I was younger with my identity as an Indigenous person. It's not something we talked about in our family, and I'm very open about that. And my mom is from Six Nations Grand River, and that was it was covered up in our family, and it wasn't something that we had a sense of understanding. And I felt very kind of closeted with that. I was also closeted as a two-spirit person, and so and I struggled in school, and I struggled in my home life, and I just found myself struggling with depression and not knowing where to turn. And eventually, it came to a dangerous place, and I leaned on music heavily on art, on creating, and suddenly I felt like I had a reason to be, a reason to stay, a reason to exist, a reason to go on. And it became music. Music became my whole purpose, and I started to feel like I was healing, and I had something to offer, and I had somewhere to go in this world. And it's why I'm such an advocate for young people to lean heavily on their dreams and their passions and their gifts from the Creator, so they have that sense of purpose. And music is such a powerful tool to do that. We can all be a part of music and all be a part of art in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a hobby. So I know the power that it has, and that it holds, and it continues to be this guide for me to continue growing and healing. I feel like, for your second question, I feel like art gave me, it was a form of a way to communicate for me, and mostly with myself, to look within and question parts of myself, and question my healing, and question, where I am versus where I want to go, and the pain that I have felt through different things in my life, and wanting to embrace those things and not hide from them and not feel shame. And that was a big thing for me in my healing journey. And music just gave me this voice to embrace the things that I struggled with, and the things that I was made to feel ashamed of at one point, growing up. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like, I struggled with a learning disorder, and so I struggled with school, and I struggled with at home and family dynamics. Music gave me this empowerment, I guess, to embrace, and felt like it gave me my power back, my voice back, and then I could share that. And then the feeling of potentially that doing the same thing for someone else who's younger and needs to feel that same sense of hope, that is so important. It's just all about the journey, and it's all about using who I am, where I came from, and the things that make me me, and even like the dark spots, and even the not so sure spots. Just sharing that artistically, and growing in that way, growing as a person, growing as an artist. And it's just like, I'm obsessed. It's just all about that journey. The industry does lack visibility. Especially I feel like as a two-spirit person, I remember when I came out, and I'm pretty open about this, but I remember when I first came out in my young 20s in the industry, and was told to, not be out because it wasn't, I guess popular, whatever you want to, mainstream popular to be out as a two-spirit person. But man, how crazy that seems now, because I just feel so proud of how far I've come in my pride, and I feel so strongly about the purpose of two-spirit people and the importance of two-spirit people. every young person and every two-spirit person deserves to feel that sense of pride. And it's not always easy because we do come up against hardship and people that don't feel the same way. I mean, I've experienced that a lot lately, actually. And it's just I think the best thing I can do is be out loud and proud and walk into an industry room or a table or on stage and show up and represent that message, represent who I am, represent how far I've come in that journey, and advocate and give, a voice to not only I like to say my younger self, I like to think if I was my younger self, kind of seeing that, just being out loud and proud is the most important thing you could do, especially for young people kind of looking up and wondering, am I okay to be who I am? That place can get really dark and scary place to be. So, just using my platform, using my voice, using my story to show up. That's important.
To the lake, to the sea, to the well, all will flow if we let it come and go. Come and see.
Felicia Montes is a Chicana Indigenous Raramuri poet, performer, and educator based in LA. Her work centers community healing, women's empowerment, and spiritual activism through creative practice.
Having been a child of the movement, the Chicano movement specifically in the 60s and 70s, I grew up as a Chicana and an activist of sorts, even through college. But around college, I was able to connect and understand a little bit differently from my parents that I wanted to focus on through the arts, through spirituality, and focusing on women and Indigenous communities. And one of the ways I had seen that people could do that was through art. I volunteered at 15 years old at Self-Help Graphics for a summer. And during college, I was one of the summer interns. And throughout that time, my kind of high school and college years, I had gone in Self-Help Graphics to see how art could be a tool for education, empowerment, and transformation. And so I really saw it in person, and I wanted to continue that. And so specifically for women and for women of color. So In La Quechua started, which is a poetry group. It wasn't really officially supposed to be a group that we were starting, but some of us shared poetry, and it really transformed ourselves, and we saw that it really affected others in a good way and encouraged them to create and share. And so we started Mujeres de Maíz. We called and let people know people who wanted to do, who were already doing art in some way, either if they learned new folklorico or dance or music, and we brought them all together. And we've been doing that for 28 years now, bringing women who are artists or poets, musicians, singers, dancers together to share. So we've really seen how it's transformed our community, specifically the women of color community and the Chicanx, Latinx, Indigenous community, and specifically that around East Los Angeles and the east side of Los Angeles, where we're located and focused. The first few times we shared our poetry, it was only supposed to be one time, but people in the audience were really affected. We were really transformed by being able to share our poetry, not because necessarily we were these amazing poets, but it was because we were able to tell our stories, our experiences, from very happy experiences to not so happy to sad, and all the ones in between. But being able to share them was something really healing to us. Sometimes it was purging wounds or sharing experiences that we realized somebody else had in the audience or somebody right next to us. And the people in the audience also were very much connected to that. They had never seen women of color as much or Chicanas or people their age or of their onda and their style or from where they grew up. being on stage or sharing some of the experiences that they could relate to. So that was really important. And I think it really is a healing moment for many. And we continue to see that. And we've done that over the years, for the last 28 years. In terms of collective healing, because we've done that as a group, as in Maquecha Mujeres de Maíz, we've always asked others to join us. So I think collectively, inviting others to do it, encouraging us to do it, seeing people who are doing it in groups. We've started women's collectives, which are about healing and wellness and art, and we continue to have that example. My intersectional identity as a woman, a Chicana Indigenous woman, a person who grew up more in lower income in East LA and the larger East Side, is important because it had very specific experiences for me to understand who I was and what was happening in the larger world around me, which was usually not accepting of who I was and my positionality or my intersectional identity. And for me, I think I saw a lot of different collectives or learned about them in school through art and activist collectives. And I also was around them, people who were deciding to make a change, people who were connecting and wanting to make change, but not only individually, collectively. And so just by doing this, by being wanting to do something creative, wanting to do something that was about activism or social justice issues, it was already in resistance to the status quo. It was resistance to the usual narrative that is out there. And so it began to create counter narratives or counter scripts for the community to see their own stories, to hear their own stories. And so this was an act of resistance for many of us, and we knew that. But through the healing and through the work, it also shows some of the resilience and connected it. And I think because we've done it for so long, it shows that dedication, time, the lineage, and the resilience of the work.
Again and again, come on, let's go and do it again.